We are in the swing, the hot days of training camp, and Matt Derrick is here to help us sort it all out. There's a lot going on in the field. Matt covers it all and will help us see what we need to see. We're going to have an interesting discussion about Orlando Brown, who's surviving in the heat, and who do we need to see more from coming up today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. We're brought to you today by BetterHelp. I'll tell you more about that coming up. Thanks for checking them out. Thanks for checking us out. It's Locked On, your team every day for free on every platform. Thanks for making us your first listen. There's lots of other shows on Locked On, including the Draft Show, which we're already doing. No, I know no one's ready for that. There's already a draft class coming, though, folks. Check it out. I'm Ryan Tracy, founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, NFL33.com, RGRFootball.com, and whatever else I come up with this week. He's Matt Derrick, and all he does is actually tell me what I should know because I should know it. You can find him at ChiefsDigest.com. Matt, it's a big week. It's kind of hot out there, huh?
Kind of hot, yeah. I get some of the tough people who will say like, "Oh, hey, it's hotter in Louisiana and Houston and everything." Well, I don't care. We're here in St. Joe, and football is not supposed to be played in 88-degree weather. So at least they get these guys practicing in the mornings and everything. But no, these last 2 days have been definitely the hottest days of camp so far. Rougher than even the rookie mini camp that was a little bit warm and got to some of the guys. This has been the test. So there will probably still be a few more hot days, but these last two have been brutal, and the players have felt it.
Well, hey, it's a good hurdle to get over. It's a great combination. First 2 days of pads and the hottest days that you've had so far. That is a lot, but they got a little bit of probably a refresher in the fact that they got their left tackle back. We saw Orlando Brown today. How did you think that he looked after the holdout and rushing into camp here to try to get on the field today?
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised and a little bit impressed about just how much he was able to get done on Tuesday. The expectation all along was when he came in that there would be a little bit of acclimation period. And there was. I mean, he didn't take part in every drill, and he did leave practice a little bit early, all of which was anticipated and expected. But frankly, did a lot more than I thought. I mean, he was involved in, at least one team period, was rotated a little bit in and out, went through one-on-one drills, but went through individual period, went pretty deep into practice. So, and didn't seem to have any ill effects. I mean, he spoke to us afterwards in the press tent, and seemed like old Orlando. So right now, I mean, I think the signs look pretty good about where Orlando is shape-wise and what he's able to do so far.
So on those one-on-ones, I was really intrigued. I didn't get to see much footage yet, but the feet. I'm all concerned about the feet. I know there was the tennis thing and the stuff in the business that's going on to get better. Were you able to get even the first inkling of how that looked?
Yeah, with Orlando, he did just the one rep, and if you're watching the video right now, you see me going through my notes. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head who he went up against. He went up against had the one rep, and it was against Mike Dana, and Mike Dana just did two speed moves on him on the outside. And I suppose you'd probably give the wins to Brown. I mean, Dana did kind of get around him, but at the same time, Brown kind of pushed his depth a little bit, so he was at least getting to there. It reminded me a lot last year because Orlando was kind of working on the same things. He was working, during training camp on really trying to push the depth of guys who were coming on his outside. And from that standpoint, I mean, I think those were both probably winning reps. I mean, Dana did get around him, but like I said, I don't think the quarterback would have been there because he just pushed him deep enough to get him outside the pocket. So it wasn't completely sharp, but like I said, I mean, I think honestly, I mean, considering it was his first day at camp, first day in pads, everything, there's a lot to like, I think.
That's the way I take it too. Like, this was what I was hoping for when we knew that the contract wasn't going to happen and there was going to be a holdout. Like, as long as you're prepared and you're keeping your feet under you and you're able to be quicker than we saw last year and able to make the transition, like you said, for a first day, I think overall that has to be a positive indication for what we're going to see in the coming weeks and obviously during the season.
Yeah, I mean, the nightmare scenario for the Chiefs would be that Orlando comes in and isn't able to get through a practice, that it's physically a little bit too taxing for him, that he looks a little bit overmatched. None of those things were true. I mean, none of those things are the case. So, and we talked about it before. I mean, hey, you would prefer that nobody misses camp. You would prefer that everybody gets in on time and they can start working on everything. But this, I mean, if you're going to come in, this is a decent time to finally get in. I mean, this isn't so late that you seriously feel like Orlando's behind the 8 ball. I mean, this is a point where, it should not take him too long to catch up speed wise. It's not like the guys are 3 weeks ahead of him. And he's trying to catch up from that standpoint. So the Chiefs were pretty pleased, at least, that Orlando got in this quickly, because obviously the fear was that it would be a little bit long before they saw him.
I think there's more and more to that. As you go forward, it kind of cascades, right? And so the next step now is, okay, if he could take 1 rep, he should be back in practice tomorrow. He should be running with the ones. It shouldn't be any kind of issue. The question then becomes for me, how did you feel about the 2s and who stood in for him? I believe it was Roderick Johnson. You tell me if I'm wrong, but does that make him a swing tackle candidate here versus Kennard playing swing from the other side of the right tackle spot?
Yeah, it's interesting. Roderick Johnson did most of the work at that left tackle spot with Orlando out. There was one day that Andrew Wiley did take the majority of the left tackle reps, and Roderick worked on the right side. And that could very well have been a little bit of just Chiefs like to cross-train guys and like to get them, an opportunity. So they may have seen this as an opportunity before Orlando got in to give Andrew a full day at left tackle, and that be kind of his time there. So now they don't have to mess with Orlando or rotate him out or anything. Really, the interesting question is, who is involved in that battle for the kind of swing tackle spot? And with you keeping 9 or 10 offensive linemen, maybe even 2 spots for that position. Right now, I mean, I think you'd have to say Johnson and Kennard are the most likely candidates for that based on what we've seen. Kennard has been getting the exclusive work with the 2s at right tackle. Gets the occasional look at left tackle, but I once again, that doesn't seem to be the focus for the Chiefs this year. If Kennard pushes for any type of playing time, it's going to be on the right side, and there's still a long way to go in camp. I mean, Andrew Wiley is the starter right now at that spot. It doesn't mean that he's going to finish camp there. Kennard, I think, has looked really good. I know the Chiefs have been happy with him. I had someone in the organization tell me they thought that on Monday was Kennard's best day of camp so far. That was the first day in pads. And I thought he looked pretty good on Tuesday as well, especially in some of the one-on-ones. So those 2 guys, I think, are definitely the front runners right now. If you want an experienced left tackle to be one of your swing guys, Roderick is probably that guy. Question to me is going to be, hey, does Jerian Christian enter this conversation at any point? Because right now, as far as camp goes, he hasn't. I mean, he's been kind of, the guy on the outside looking in.
Okay. I like that positivity moving forward, and we can figure out the backups. That's not a concern. There's another guy that I want to talk about in terms of first day in pads being a good day for him. We're going to get to Leo Chanel coming up next, folks. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Life is full of twists and turns, and it's important to show up for yourself through it all. BetterHelp is online therapy that will assess your needs and can match you with your own licensed professional therapist in less than 48 hours. I have been through a lot of things in my life, including a layoff from my big tech job back in the day that actually led to me creating my podcast career. And as this has gone forward, I could have used some help back then. It would have been really beneficial for how I got through that. BetterHelp is not a crisis line. It's not self-help. It's professional therapy done securely online and available to people worldwide. You can log onto your account anytime and send a message to a therapist, schedule a phone call, or schedule a video session. All those things can be done however you desire in making your therapy conform to what you need. And there are a few tries it might take for you to find what's right for you, but BetterHelp makes it easy and free to change therapists if needed. BetterHelp is a great way to invest in yourself and your future. All you have to do is visit their website and read the testimonials that are posted daily. We have a special offer for all of our listeners right now. Get 10% off your first month over at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's 10% off of your first month of online therapy at betterhelp.com/lockedon. Now, that said, I think we could use some help at the linebacker spot. One guy that's going to do that is Leo Chanel. I think waiting for pads was something he talked about earlier on in camp. And from what I saw, certainly everything that I saw on film at Wisconsin is right there. Coming downhill, playing against the run, looks as good as he did in college from what I've seen. At least one day, How did he look to you today, the second day of pads?
Yes, I had someone tell me that this was just the worst possible couple of weeks and months for Leo, because he comes to the Chiefs and he comes into OTAs and it's a passing camp. And then he gets to the training camp and it's a passing camp until the pads come on. And you just knew Leo was waiting to be able to start hitting some people. And yeah, we've seen it. I mean, 9-on-7 drills today. That's a run period, that you just saw him blowing through some gaps and hitting some people. You see it. This guy is a downhill player that has been established since day one and just more reinforced the last couple of days with the pads on. That's what this kid can do. What's the big picture for him this year? I mean, yeah, Chiefs are going to minimize, the opportunities to see him in pass coverage. I mean, they want him being a downhill player. And so, yeah, you're going to see him in a lot of run fits. You're going to see him in opportunities where they can get him to go after the passer some. It's going to be interesting to see if I'm not sold that he's going to win that, starting job and starting in quotation marks, because the Chiefs spend so much time in sub packages, but Elijah Lee is probably going to be that, starter really on the strong side. And that's probably for the best because he's better equipped in the passing game, but Leo's going to play plenty and he's going to make some people hurt because this guy is a big hitter. He's explosive. And when he goes downhill, you're not stopping him. So, I mean, that's a force to be reckoned with. Once he's more established and once he's got his feet wet in this league and he starts to pick up the pass keys a little bit, there's some real potential there for an all-around linebacker.
I'm really interested in that. There's going to be a future game against the Titans. The Raiders are still planning on running quite a bit, as I understand. There are some games on the schedule I think might suit him a little bit better than Elijah Lee, but I'm glad that you brought him, as I was going to go there as well. Elijah maintaining that starter position right now. Again, a base is not something they're going to play a lot, but if he's the next guy out there, how does that stack up to what we've seen over the last few years with Damian before him, Reggie before him? Like, how does that come into focus for Elijah Lee?
Yeah, and and Damian Wilson's is a good player to mention because Damian and Leo probably share a little similarities, especially as far as their career arcs and what they came into the league as, and Damian's ability to get better against the pass as his career moved on. I mean, that's certainly what the Chiefs are hoping with him too. I still think Leo's a better downhill player, but has certainly a lot more potential as a downhill player. But those two guys between him and Lee, they should be pretty, I think, good duo as far as being able to share that position a little bit. Their skills kind of complement each other. And if you think about, where the Chiefs were last year in that spot, in that same spot, really, I mean, a lot of times we're talking about maybe being Ben Neiman or a linebacker that's in that spot. This year, hey, you're going to see plenty of Brian Cook in 3 safety looks. I mean, that's still going to be a part of what the Chiefs do. But I think Spags has got an opportunity now that if he wants to keep 3 linebackers out there more, he can do it a little bit. Those two guys, I think, complement each other pretty well. The catch is going to be, and that the thing that just worries me about in the chess game is that the defense might be a little bit predictable and that what the Chiefs are looking for based on what the personnel is going to be.
That's exactly my concern as well. So you got to get a little variety there. I like what you bring up in Brian Cook. I feel like he's had up and down. I thought I saw him grab a hamstring today. I didn't see him on an injury report, though. Does everything ring solid over there?
So far, yeah. Nothing that was reported to us today, and he did not leave practice or anything.
Okay. One guy who did get banged up is Skye Moore. We're going to talk about the offense on the backside of this and who we need to get a little bit more view on. But I'm betting that Skye Moore is going to be a significant part of this offense. If you want to make that bet, the prop is up at BetOnline, where you can get all the information, all the podcast info, lines, games, et cetera, for all your betting needs in one place. You can bet every league, not that any other sport matters, but this one, but that's okay. You can do what you want. BetOnline continues to give you all the resources you need to get your money on the line in a way that makes you some money and doesn't risk you your money. All the pods, all the scores at your fingertips at betonline.net. It's BetOnline where the game starts. Skye Moore had a nice couple of days. Pads come on, still looked like he was producing some. Today came up with a bit of a physical issue. What can you tell us?
Yeah, it was during one-on-one drills, and it looked like he kind of slipped a little bit, and then Nazeeh Johnson bumped into him. It looked a lot nastier, or at least, and I want to say nasty because it wasn't a dirty hit from Nazeeh Johnson by any stretch of the imagination. It just looked like it was a little bit more impactful on Moore from 75 yards away live than it did in the close-up. I mean, the close-up video you can kind of see he just got bumped a little bit, but yeah, he left to practice with what the Chiefs were calling a hip injury. He gave up. Hey, he gave the thumbs up signal on Instagram later on in a reply and everything. So Skye's apparently telling us he's okay. We'll see if he's back out there on the field on Wednesday morning. Didn't seem like it was anything serious at first, so we'll see. But I'm with you. I mean, Skye's looked pretty good so far in camp. I mean, he's been doing everything to this point the Chiefs have asked him to do. I mean, the tough thing is obviously going to be just how much of the offense can he pick up and how much can he learn. The other part of it is that I think the other three guys ahead of him on the depth chart have also been looking pretty good and playing pretty well. So that's at this point, it's going to be a nice problem for the Chiefs to figure out how to distribute the ball around to those guys.
Yeah, I hear a lot of folks pushing for Skye Moore to be in a starting role, and by starter, folks, we mean top three. I just don't see that emerging as good as he's looked and taking over anyone like McCole yet. Do you see that the top three are still the top three?
I see the top three as the top three, and Skye, I mean, he's in a special category because he does have a lot of skills. You can see the athleticism, but one-on-one matchups are not necessarily the biggest problem with him. It's going to be really when he faces more complex defenses and he's got somebody over the top and everything. And it's going to be there's just picking up the intricacies of route running and the little tricks in this offense. This is a massive offense and there's multiple routes. There's so many things that you've got to figure out. And that's what makes it tough for rookies. So, the challenge for Skye Moore as far as getting opportunities and routes is that you've got to know it all. And that's almost impossible to expect for a rookie in this offense to do. So, I mean, hey, I think it'd be great if he saw the same kind of playing time that Tyreek Hill saw as a rookie and the similar kind of numbers. To me, I think that's a great season for Skye Moore. And I think I don't want to put a reasonable expectation on the kid that's what he can do. But, I'd have no problems that if Skye Moore went out there and just, put up almost 600 yards this year. I think that's within his reach physically. It's just that, once again, there's going to be a lot of balls to go around and a lot of guys who are more experienced and know all of the positions. And that's going to be just the toughest thing for him as far as battling for playing time.
Present yourself to the quarterback, people. That's what this is about. Now, there is another guy that is not a rookie that knows the offense, knows where to be, but is having a physical issue. Any update on Jody Fortson? We know that he was in the sleeve, but looked pretty upbeat to me.
Yeah, and we got to see him jogging across the field, maybe even a little bit more of a jog across the field. It was a pretty little gallop that he did from the training tent across the field over to where they were working on the second field on the far side. He seems like he's in pretty good spirits. He's talked to fans as he's been coming down the hill the last couple of days. Chiefs are just being, cautious with it. It's a quad strain, and they're going to be cautious with him coming off the Achilles too. They don't want to push him too hard or too fast. The expectation from Andy Reid was this was going to be maybe a couple of days. Wouldn't surprise me if they protected him a little bit longer than that. But right now, no. I mean, all indications are that this is just a minor setback for him and his return. And he looked really good before the injury. So I think there's reason to be optimistic for Fortson this year again.
And by really good, you mean that he is technically the tight end too at this point, correct?
From a passing standpoint, for sure. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt at this point from what we've seen, he is the second best receiving tight end on this team. Absolutely.
Okay, I think we're all comfortable with that. At least I certainly am. The question is, how's Noah Gray looking? It looks like he got a little bit more targets last practice. I don't know about this morning.
Yeah, I think Noah's been more consistent this year than he was last year, especially in these 2 days with the pads. I mean, that was last year. The Chiefs really gave him a lot of reps. I mean, he was seeing time with 1s, 2s, and 3s because they just wanted to give him as many opportunities as possible a year ago. And before the pads came on, he was everywhere making plays. He slowed down a bit once the hitting started, and and there can be lots of reasons for that. Mm-hmm. But I do feel like at least these last couple of days, he's been a bit more consistent in that standpoint. So, hey, let's see what year two, if there's a little bit more of a bounce to him. But Yeah, I mean, I still feel like that's a 4-player position group. I mean, I think Noah Gray's going to make this team, barring something drastic, as Chiefs are going to carry a lot of tight ends.
It is a 4 tight end group this year. We're leading it right now, right?
Yeah, I would be very surprised if they cut down to 3. I mean, they've surprised me before and gone to that, but I think they're pretty happy with the 4 that they have.
So that brings me, if you're going to run 4 tight ends and you're going to keep 10 linemen, you got to find some space somewhere. Lord knows you need all the DBs that you can get. So can they afford Mike Burton plus 4 running backs is my next question for you right now.
That's a great question. I mean, and I don't think Mike Burton's in any question whatsoever. I mean, Mike Burton's 100%. I mean, he's going to make this roster. It's just going to be the running backs and how many do they keep? Because right now it's a stacked room, they feel like, and it's a deep room. I've gone in the last 24 hours, and I'll be doing my first roster projection later this week. But I'm going from, Isaiah Pacheco being maybe like 75% on this roster to probably 99% on this roster. I think he's really going to have to, disappoint this team during the preseason and the last few weeks of camp because they've been happy with everything so far. And if he can return kicks during the preseason, he's going to be the first guy up for Dave Toub returning kicks. If he does that reliably, he's going to be your kick returner. They definitely see potential for him in the receiving game too, as far as a running game that goes. Really been impressed with him more in that category. But then, you got Ronald Jones, you got Clyde still, you got Jerick McKinnon, Derek Gore's no slouch. I say, hey, once again, teams and fan bases overrate their own running backs. So it's going to be easier to get maybe 1 or 2 of those guys on a 16-player practice squad than you think. But yeah, I mean, which ones? I mean, is it going to be Burton and 3 guys? Yeah, I mean, if you're going to keep 4, and I at this point, all indications are this team's keeping 6 receivers too.
Right.
So barring any change there, I mean, you're going to have to go light somewhere.
That's my concern. So at this point, Dave Toub is Isaiah Pacheco's best friend. I think that will remain that way. Tell me about how RoJo looks compared to CEH and McKinnon in particular. What are the 3 vets doing?
Yeah, RoJo's been very curious in the usage in this camp because it has been all across the board. I mean, Tuesday, he was basically the second running back and everything. And that was the day after on Monday when he was basically maybe the 3rd or 4th running back and everything. And some of that can absolutely certainly be that, running backs coach Greg Lewis and EB and Andy Reid are just wanting to get different looks at different players and rotate these guys. Maybe he was even battling an injury, something minor that we didn't know about, and they just wanted to give him a light day. You never know. But at the same time, I mean, I think RoJo has been better as a receiver than anybody expected. I've heard from some that maybe that they think that he just doesn't have maybe the explosiveness that people are expected. But I think we're going to learn a lot in the preseason about how the Chiefs use these guys and how effective that they are. Not that hey, this team's not going to be doing anything other than vanilla, but you're going to be able to see how RoJo looks against another defense and if the speed is there and the power is there. Clyde, I mean, the Chiefs are using Clyde as they always do in training camp, making you believe that this guy's going to be a 1,600-yard back and 800 yards out of the backfield. I mean, he's everywhere. First play of scrimmages. I mean, it's Clyde. So once again, I mean, if you want to be hyped up, you want to get up on the Clyde Edwards-Helaire express train of hype, there's reason to do it again this year.
Okay, I can get with that. We're going to see how it comes.
I'm not promising it, Brian, but you've been given the evidence to believe it if you want to.
Okay, thank you. I will see. For me, generally, a running back that plays more in the preseason is a guy that's got something to prove. So let's see how they actually divide up the reps. I'm interested to see that, especially week 1. Matt, thanks for your eyes and giving us all the insight that we don't glean from not being there. We appreciate it, folks. You can find all of Matt's stuff at ChiefsDigest.com. That is the source for all of your information. Thank you, Matt. We appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, Ryan. Take care, everybody.
Everybody have a good day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.